Hello and welcome to the studio. I have a little bonus video here for those who are sewing along on the Almond Country Beauty block of the month. We're going to talk about how to get the absolute most out of your fabric for this project. And the way we're going to do that is by reusing these trimmings that are left over from having pieced other arcs to piece this smaller inner arc. And these trimmings are predominantly left over from those large outer arcs. Those are bigger pieces. They're going to have bigger trimmings. And you'll find that most of those, or a lot of them, will cover these smaller spaces. So you can see here that there are all different sizes and shapes of trimmings. Really none of them are, these are point fabrics and points. C8 here is a point. None of them are this shape, and that's okay. What we care about is the size. So like this pink one, for example, if you weren't sure if this was going to cover your space or not, what you do is position it over the area you want to cover, hold it up to the light, and take a look at it. Does it have a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance all the way around or more? You can see there's quite a bit extra down here. Don't worry about that because it'll get trimmed away. But what you do want to worry about is whether or not you have a seam allowance all the way around. So for this pink piece, the answer is yes, we can use that piece. Now this little blue piece here, you can probably tell just by looking at it that it's not going to work out. But if you weren't sure, you could position it there and see, it's got a pretty good seam allowance everywhere except for right here. There's just nothing to work with here, so this is a piece we're not going to be able to use. Okay, so once you've got your pieces all sorted and you know that they're going to work, we are ready to start piecing this. And with paper piecing, of course, we always start from the back, sew from the back. Now, the first piece of fabric here, I'm going to get a smaller one because this is a smaller area that we want to cover. You are going to see that there's a triangle here. It's wide at the top, the points at the bottom, the angled cuts on the inside here. You're going to position this first piece of fabric that same way. Wide at the top, the points at the bottom, the angles here on the inside. You're going to lay that along the seam line, slip it over a 1/4 of an inch. You can hold that up to the light and see, yeah, you've got loads of extra fabric out here. So that piece is ready to go. Now this next piece is the key piece. Let me use a smaller one here. So what most people are going to want to do is to bring this in, put the point at the top, the wide part at the bottom, align these angles here, these angled cuts. And this is exactly what you don't want to do. Now, if you sew your seam here and fold this open, you'll see what happens. This whole bottom section doesn't have any fabric coverage. So that's what you don't want to do. What you do want to do is always work from this corner point. So you'll take that corner point, put it always at the widest part of your triangle and right on the cutting line down here. So on the cutting line, align it with your piece below, line that up, and now you can see when you take your 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, you've got plenty of coverage here. So that is really the secret to reusing these pieces. So let me put this one in the machine and sew the seam. All right, we're going to fold that open, and we've got outstanding coverage there on that piece. Now, we are going to use that principle the whole rest of the way across this thing to cover it. We're going to take our next triangle, which is a background triangle. We're going to find that corner point, put it at the top along this cutting line. Now, I didn't trim this back, so I'm just going to scooch this over a 1/4 of an inch here. And rather than line it up with that edge, because we're going to lose too much fabric. Slip that in the machine. Sew that seam. And now when you open that up, you've got plenty of coverage. Since I didn't trim it before, I need to trim it now, so we'll get rid of all that extra and just leave ourselves that 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. And I will show you one more time just to make sure that you are confident about reusing your pieces. We're going to press that. So we're going to find our next piece, working from the corner. In this situation, our widest point is at the bottom, so we want our corner at the bottom, right on that cutting line, and 1/4 of an inch over the seam line. Pop that in the machine and sew that seam. And now when you open that, you have plenty of coverage. So hopefully that helps you, gives you the little secret tip you need to reuse those fabrics and helps you get the most out of your fabric for this project.